What's a saying that your mom or dad used to say all the time? Me. What's for dinner? Father. Poisoned another was when he found something that was missed previously. What's this, that? A ham sandwich. Quote. When someone was about to say something stupid, Dad would say, pass the bread. Here comes the bologna. I am the youngest of 5 kids, so going anywhere was slow and tedious. My dad used to say, and away we go, like a herd of turtles. Quote. Well, that's not ideal. My father, whenever something pretty bad happened, my dad would say, don't look at me in that tone of voice. God darn it. Mom just bought these 20 minutes ago. How are they all gone? I grew up in a large family and my mom would shop at those bulk food stores. She'd always buy one of those big plastic containers of bakery cookies and my little brothers would eat all of them as they unloaded her car. My dad used to get so pissed. He loved those cookies. My dad used to drive me to school every day in high school, and when I got out of the car he would say, have a good day, learn something new, and don't waste the insert county taxpayers' money. I rolled my eyes every time he said it for a few years, but looking back it makes me smile. Me. How far until we're there? Dad. It's just around the corner. It was never just around the corner. My mom always used plenty in a sarcastic way. So for quite some time, like until turning 7 or something, I thought plenty meant very little of anything. Like when I only left 1 spoonful of ice cream inside the container. She'd say, wow, plenty left. Quote. This really confused me when my teacher told the class before a school trip, don't worry, there will be plenty of things to do, like BTCHY. You smiling about that? My mom would often dismiss irritable or grumpy family members by telling them to have a garbage and lighten your load. My dad. Heavens to Murgatroyd. I spent years wondering what this meant, and not until I was an adult did I find out that it's something Snagglepuss used to say. Also my dad. Lordy. Lordy. 1940. Cut my legs and call me Shorty. I still don't know what this means. Anytime we were out and about somewhere and I told my mom I was thirsty, she would say, want me to spit in your mouth? This was her whimsical and weirdly polite way of saying, I cannot solve this problem for you right now, so shut up. I find it oddly comforting to use all of the above on my own kids. At various times, the tradition continues. It makes me wonder if my parents were doing the same. And these things actually date to my grandparents. Or even earlier. If it was a snake, it would have been my mom's favorite and very Texan phrase for when my dad and I couldn't find something, but it was where we were looking or in plain sight the whole time. See this finger? See is this thumb? See this fist? You better run. And you're cruising for a bruisin'. My parents never hit us, so this was always in jest, but my mom did chase my sister and I through the house with a yardstick once. Edit. Fixed and autocorrect. Write it down on a piece of paper. I'm all choked up with a cold in the head. My father, who had a third of his skull ripped from his head in World War II, refused to accept that he was deaf and of course refused to learn sign language. My dad. Never back up any farther than you have to. This is outstanding advice. When you hear hoofbeats, don't look for zebras. This is in regards to troubleshooting, i.e., check the simplest and most logical cause of the issue before you look for something weird and off beat. Is it plugged in? Is it turned on? When I'd do something dumb, my dad would say, I swear you're the milkman's kid. Now I have him in my phone as the milkman. On a car trip, whenever I didn't know where we were going and I would ask, where are we going? My dad would always say, crazy. Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. If you're that bored, go outside. Take your clothes off. Put them in a pile. And then guard theme is here. Damned is the man who abandons himself. Dad used to say this to me when I was doubting my choices. My mom always said, if someone apologizes, don't just say, it's okay. That's saying that what they did was okay. If it was okay, They wouldn't be apologizing. She would always make me say, "I accept your apology," and I hated it. But now I fully understand it, and I use it to this day. I know where your house lives. My grandmother, life sucks and then you die. When asked to do something, what did your last servant die of? Quote, "You buy cheap, you get cheap. Just because you're poor doesn't mean you have to be dirty. You have to be smarter than what you are working with." Deleted. Whenever my mom would cook a great meal, my dad would always say, "Can't get this in a restaurant." Edit. Wow, my most upvoted comment ever. Thanks everyone. My dad doesn't know what a Reddit is, but I'll share the good news with him this year. If someone is working for a living, they deserve your respect. Whenever I fell or got injured, my mom would say, "Oh, that looks bad. Should we cut it off?" Quote, in a very serious tone. And whenever my dad wants to know if we understand him, or the answer to a yes or no question, he says, "Are we tracking? North-south, east-west." Quote, north-south is head nods for yes. East-west is head nods for no. I use both of those now pretty regularly. It was like an algorithm to find the name of the person she was mad at. 80% of my name. Firstborn. Plus 70% of my brother's name. Secondborn. Plus 60% of youngest brother plus cat's name. Stopping when she hit the name she meant. Examples. Bill Cletus, clean your dang room. Bill, take out the darn trash. Bill Cleat, ma boogles, cut back on the fluffing catnip you keep pissing on the couch. Shit or get off the pot. Greater than don't take life too seriously. You'll never get out of it alive, and #X200B. I remember my grandmother used to say this a lot. "Dad, if I was any better I couldn't stand it," in reply to being asked how he was doing. "I brought you into this world, I can take you out of it." Usually in the car as we pulled in the driveway and parked. Greater than home again, home again. Jiggity jog. That's racist. My father about things that mildly inconvenience him and have nothing to do with race. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. I can't think of any other sayings my dad has, but he's got plenty. Does a bear garbage in the woods? In response to a question where the obvious answer is yes. My mom used to always say, "Don't let your mouth write a check that your butt can't cash." Usually, it was said when my brother and I were threatening each other over dumb garbage, as siblings do. She also said it to remind us not to make promises we couldn't keep. At dinner, don't talk with your hands full, and #X200B. We're a deaf family. Holding cutlery while signing is a bad idea. My dad used to say, "Son, if you're not in bed by 10 p.m., you should go home." This took me a few years to understand, but it turned out to be sage advice. Stop grabbing your slong or it will disappear. We don't negotiate with terrorists. Shed fire and save the matches. And if she couldn't think of a person's name, she would call them garbage hook. Damn, darn, double darn. I miss my moments here. My mom, if I'd complain something hurt, a person alive always has something hurting. Butter and brood maak kinder screwed. Basically saying that bread and butter will make kids grow. She just says pot kettle instead of saying the full saying with pot, calling kettle black. Grades A equals amazing, B equals better, F equals fluff out of my house. Want in one hand and garbage in the other and see which one fills up first. My dad uses the advice, use your head for more than a hat rack, to this day. Turn signals must have been an option that year, when someone made a stupid turn or cut my dad off. Tell your story walkin'. My dad got this from his instructor at the police academy, who was a retired NYPD officer. It wasn't necessarily a one-liner, but it's a favorite story of mine and made sense. He was a cop and firefighter. Still is a firefighter at nearly 66 years old. The guy has seen some garbage. In the mid-80s, right around the time I was born, he was working his shift as a cop and got a call for a domestic violence call at an address that visited frequently. He shows up with his backup a few minutes out. Woman runs out of the house, bloodied with her bruised up son. Husband had beaten her and was right behind her coming out of the house. My dad grabs him and he takes a swing on my dad. He dodges it and grapples the guy to get him to the ground. Guy begins swinging more and my dad eventually body slams him and rams his knee into the guy's back. Wrenches his arm back and begins to cuff him as you're on the way to jail. The guy tells my dad that he doesn't fight fair, besides telling him he at least fights someone who can give him a fair fight. And my favorite line: "They don't pay me to fight fair. They pay me to win." My dad went on that in nearly every situation his job is to get the situation under control without resorting to putting one or several of his .38 caliber rounds into him. Monsieur, the guy says that it makes sense and he never saw it like that. He told me this when I was 14 or so. You do what you have to do to make sure you walk away from a bad situation.